Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I did this. I've actually been really busy. Everything's fine with me. Been really busy. Today is the 16th of April. Yeah, sure enough. Got other projects and have been sort of offline for a while. But thought I would jump on here and discuss a topic that is actually related to what I have been doing. So, uh, we started a small project here to put a new roof on our house, and decided that actually this house wasn't worth trying to save, and going to tear down part of it, and then based on plans that I'm working on, that's really taking a lot of my time. Build a different structure with more rooms, heavier insulation, some other things. Future proofing is one way to look at it. I'll discuss that a little later, possibly. I have actually another channel set up to deal with this project. Apart from this, Cougar W, I have another channel set up that I'll be probably live streaming on. My turtle. That was my turtle. Live streaming the build, discussing why I'm doing things the way I'm doing it. I'm not a builder by trade. I'm just a person who's interested in building, have been studying it a lot, doing lots of YouTube videos, studying the codes, which is more like book work, and drawing my plans, and using the process of drawing my plans to learn what really needs to go into it. So almost like formal education. I almost feel like I'm getting yet another degree, this time in residential construction. So again, there'll be more on that later. A whole new channel has been put together for that. I'll probably be live streaming some of that, and maybe doing focused videos like this explaining decisions and why things are being done. So I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm learning as I go. It should be real interesting, because the project that I'm doing is very big and very technically demanding and very forward thinking. It's different. I'm a different kind of person. I think different ways, and I approach problem solving a little differently than maybe other people do. So again, little teaser, more on that later, a lot more on that later. But in the meantime, I've been looking at how to build my house and watching as the housing industry changes, how affordability has been impacted, and also, it turns out, the price of materials, lumber. Houses are made out of lumber, other things as well, insulation, roofing, electrical, plumbing, all that stuff, and of course the foundation. What I'm specifically looking at mostly, because I'll be using a lot of it, is the price of lumber. So I have done a lot of small projects on this property of mine, and I have a really good idea of what things cost. I bought a lot of things. I've done plumbing, electrical, framing, roofing, insulation. I've done solar. I've done a lot of stuff. Okay, I am not new to this at all. Not by any stretch am I new to this. I have done things with permits. I've been inspected. I have passed inspection. All of it. Okay, all of it. So I have a good idea of what I'm up against. And what I'm up against is, right now, interestingly enough, the price and availability of lumber. So let me talk about that a little bit. I'll talk about that, first of all, as my observations. So I'm a scientist, an engineer. Here I go, putting on my science cap and making observations. And then I'll give you my opinions, what all that means. So observation time, data. Here comes the fire hose. So I used to buy 2x4s for anywhere between $2 each. These are 2x4 studs. So they're 8 foot long, suitable for walls, or close to it. And paying $1.99, $2, $2.25, maybe certain times of the year $2.80, $2.90, almost never over $3. As I've been going to the hardware store and looking at things and buying wood and whatnot for small projects around the house here, I have noticed that the price has been going up a lot. The price of a 2x4 right now, well, I can't say right now because I haven't been to the Home Depot recently, but the last time I was in there, some month ago or so, it was up around $7 a board. So that's like a 3x increase, pretty much 3 times increase. Other cuts and dimensions are comparable. I was also really surprised to notice that plywood sheathing, which you need on the outside of your walls and on your floors and on your roof, so you use a lot of it, which used to bounce around, again, depending on whether there's been a hurricane in Florida or not, somewhere between as low as $8 a sheet for a 4x8 sheet to maybe more average 12 or 13, as high as 15, again, depending on if there's been a hurricane. Literally, all the plywood disappears in the stores and around the nation when there's a lot of storms. Like during hurricane season, people buy up, every time they turn around, they're having to buy up more plywood, and it just goes through the plywood. People boarding up their businesses, their homes, and then later building their homes. And when tornadoes come through communities, rebuilding their communities. So plywood gets used a lot all around during the summer. So I would see, now I'm seeing prices of plywood going up instead of like to $15 or $18, rarely 20, like sticker shock, $20 a board. Now it's bouncing at pretty much 70. Again, 3x, okay? Why? So as I'm working on my plans, and I'm using a lot of lumber, I keep count of how many studs are going in the walls, how many sheets it's going to take to do the floor, how many sheets for the roof, all these other things. I'm constantly doing my calculations, so I know what I'm going to have. And also how much I'm going to have to store. You store these things on your property. How much am I going to need? Where am I going to put it, right? So as I'm looking at this and pricing this stuff out, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of money. It's a lot. It's shocking. It's really amazing how much it's gone up. And analysts are now looking at it, really strange, right? Lumber futures. We're accustomed to hearing about the price of West Texas Intermediate oil, right? Or grain futures or things like that, because these are really important to daily life. But we don't normally think about the wholesale price or the futures price for lumber. And yet a lot of people taking a very intense interest in this suddenly. So it's possibly a problem for me. Possibly a problem. I was kind of allowing $50,000 as just sort of I've been pricing things as I go. I was allowing $50,000 a floor for my new structure. It's going to have a basement, first floor, second floor, and an unfinished attic. You still have to put a roofing on it and insulation in the wall, so it's semi-finished. That's code requirement. You do have to have insulation in your attic so that it doesn't heat the other floors, right? So semi-finished, but basically 3 floors, and I was thinking $50,000 a floor plus $50,000 for the attic because it gets the roof, okay? And there's a lot of lumber and insulation and roofing in a roof. So $50,000 times 4, I was thinking $200,000 cash on the barrelhead. Now that is kind of with current pricing. I get the sticker shock, right? I'm thinking, man, plywood, what is going on? How much plywood do I need again? Jeez. And I do the math, and it's like, I'm going to need $10,000 worth of plywood. I'm going to need $12,000 worth of sheathing for the roof, and lumber for the roof. And it's like, well, okay, I'm still kind of coming in on glide path here, $50,000 a floor. I happen to have that money. I don't mind admitting it. It's cash. So, and by the way, $200,000 cash in Silicon Valley is pretty much vacation money around here. You can't live on it. So as I approach retirement, I'm not quite old enough for Social Security. I still have a mortgage to pay for a few more years, another decade. Then I'm looking for some income. So I don't mind spending the $200,000 to add onto my house, add some rooms. Currently, I think it ends up with 6 rooms. Right now it's 1, ends up being 6. So you see why I'm doing this. And with residential housing, you can still be considered residential housing if 5 of your rooms are for rent. You're not considered a hotel or anything else. You just happen to have 5 rooms. So I will end up with 5 rooms to rent. Maybe not. Maybe fewer than that. But because I have, family. My kids are, making their way into the world, and who knows if that's going to work out, right? Boomerang children, it's no sin, given the times, to, you know, fall back on your parents. So I have to kind of have a little extra buffer for, being able to house my kids. That's my responsibility as a parent. I'm the one who's got the land. I'm the one who had 30 years doing IT and, website development. So yeah, I'm, falls to me. So I don't mind having those extra rooms, and I'll rent some and I'll have some income. So it's fine. So I don't mind spending the 200,000 and just having it be gone, right? Because then I'll have some kind of income from it. And, that's sort of my strategy. That's my strategy. So I don't mind spending the money. I expect to spend the money. And if I had money left over, that would be fine. But, I expect to spend the money. So, I still think I'm borderline got enough money to do this, or I may have to do it in a phased manner where some of the rooms become available for rent, and then I use that money to sort of front run the rest of the construction. It's a little tight right now in my estimating. I'm like, I'm not too sure. I may have to do the work to one level, basically paint and sheetrock and paint and simple floors, and then take it to the next level, adding the coffered ceilings and the wainscoting and the other cool stuff, granite countertops, whatever, over time, right? So I have to do this phased approach. Whatever, I'll figure it out, right? But it's the price of materials, right? It's caused me to sit back and say, whoa, okay, so now I have a problem. Problem is I could run out of money. So I'm not the only one thinking that. The ratcheting up in the price of lumber has caught everybody flat-footed. Everybody is in trouble right now. People who are planning to build a deck they're saying they're not going to do that. People who are going to add a room or an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit on their property, they're not doing that now. And of course, everyone's thinking, well, the price will come back down. It can't stay like this. But I think you have to sit back and look at the structural reasons why it may be so elevated. And there's a couple of things. One, the pandemic, right? So we are still, this is 2021. We are still in pandemic mode. And the early pandemic with the shutdowns and the, stay-at-home orders and things like that kind of, it did impact the commodities markets for things like lumber. So, lumber, people have to be in the field cutting lumber. People have to be at the lumber mill to saw the lumber up. People have to be in the retail channel to sell the lumber. And all that kind of became disrupted. Actually, around here, as an aside, I think our building industry, so I'll just take Home Depot and Lowe's to name two, were considered essential. They were left open. And I didn't go in there much because I kind of put my projects on hold, and my projects weren't really well fleshed out anyway. But they were left, they remained open. And then the phenomenon was that people who were stuck at home, either because they lost their job or they were working from home, which of course would be the good news for them, they start a lot of projects at home, updating a bedroom into an office, or maybe even adding another room to make an office that they could work from home and be effective, things like that. And while you're at home, you can rebuild the fence, you can finish the garage, you could do something with the attic. There's things you could do. So one thought has been that a lot of people being home find themselves in a position of starting or finishing or adding on to projects that they've had kind of pending. In addition to people in the lumber industry, maybe not being able to work. Also, the lumber industry, I've heard, kind of did a preemptive slowdown, shutdown thing, because the thought was, oh, well, lockdowns, pandemic, they were thinking the opposite. Construction work would slow down or even stop. The people would be home. They wouldn't be interested in taking on new projects because of uncertainty about their job, for example. Am I going to lose my job? What am I going to do if I'm in the middle of a big project? And so forth. But exactly the opposite happened, right? People actually went kind of nuts. I don't want to discount. Well, I'll come back to that in a minute, because that's my other thought, where I was just about to go with that. So So, so various things happen, hand wave, and all of a sudden we have less production of lumber. I'll just stick with that right now, and yet an increase in demand. So of course that drives the price up. In addition, I have heard analyses along the lines, well, there's a lot of, I call it hot money, but I don't think that's really a technical term. It's just kind of my term for it. It's money that's looking for a home. Now, if you're a money manager or an investor, you're looking actually not just for a home for your money. You could just put your money in savings or CDs and it has a home. That's not what they're after. They're after return on their money. And with interest rates being low, one of the things that hot money has been doing is actually getting into the housing industry. Now, there's a certain element of speculation. I got to tell you, here in my neighborhood, I get calls as a homeowner. I'm, of course, registered as a homeowner. This parcel is a home. I'm the homeowner. They don't know that I'm living here, but people who look at the parcel map know that there's a home here and I'm the homeowner of record. So I get calls. I get actual phone calls. I get not emails. I'm trying to remember if I got any emails. I don't think I get emails. I get phone calls. Maybe that's just a better way to do business. But anyway, I get phone calls. Speculators saying, is your home for sale? Would you like to sell your home? Have you thought about selling your home? Prices in your neighborhood are way up, as if I wouldn't know that, right? Maybe this would be a good time for you to sell. And I'm talking to someone on the phone, right? And they're just trying to sell me to sell my home. And my response is always, no, I don't want to do that. I suppose there's maybe some point at which they would throw money at me and say, here's a suitcase full of money. Well, I want your home. And if if there was enough Benjamins in the suitcase, I guess I would. More on in a moment on why I would not do that. Okay, why I would not do that. I've already said as much. My wife and I have already decided we are not going to do that. But I could, right? And I imagine there are people in my neighborhood that are doing that. In fact, the house just to my left, to my north, sold. It was on the market. He took it off the market because he didn't like the action he was getting. And then someone called me and said, would you like to sell your house? I said, no, but the parcel just to the north of mine was just taken off the market. Call them. 3 weeks later, it sold. Where's my cut, right? Anyway, they're throwing a lot of money at people. And I'm hearing that a lot of these homes, which are just rinky-dink little rundown homes, are getting all cash offers above the asking price with stipulation that you accept now, that kind of thing. And, for a lot of people right now during the pandemic, when they maybe lost their job, they're not too sure about their job, their spouse lost their job, the industry's changing, I'm working from home, but I don't know if I ever want to go back to work. The office wasn't that great. So maybe now it's time to get out. So maybe people are taking those deals, right? But I think that's hot money, looking for a place to land where it can make a return. There's also, I've been seeing articles about a new phenomenon. You've heard of rent to own, where you rent something, and if you make enough payments, they'll actually let you own it, give you title. There's build to rent. So a developer comes into a neighborhood, develops a subdivision, whatever, and they're not selling the houses. They're renting them. Well, why would they do that? Normally, developers, they're churning through the projects, building them and flipping them into the sales market. Well, these investors aren't interested in selling houses. They're interested in steady return. So they build the house and then they rent it. And every month they get money back, and that's their return. And you can see where that would be really attractive to them. And then, of course, if the market starts to go down or the cost, and these builders are not taking out mortgages. They've got cash. They've got billions of dollars, some of it given to them by the government. And so they've got all this money laying around, and they're just paying cash to build these houses. And then everything that comes back is income. It's just income. If they ever need the cash back, they just flip the house onto the market, sell it. Probably make money on that too, right? Given what housing is doing. So it's build to rent, and it's disenfranchising a lot of young people, or a lot of people who move to a community to work, and then they can't find a house to to buy because there's nothing on the market to buy. Can you find a house to rent? Oh yeah, we'll rent you a house. And you're like, wow, that rental I'm giving you, that's like a house payment. Take it or leave it. You can rent, you just can't buy. And so you see what's happening. They want you in the rental market. They want you renting. They want you paying forever, which is a reason why I will never sell my home. I don't want to be a renter. Right now I'm on a fixed income and, I have a mortgage to pay, but I could actually pay that off tomorrow with a phone call if I wanted to. I wouldn't have any money left, but I could pay it off tomorrow with a phone call. But I can certainly pay it off by renting rooms, just continue to pay it off. But if I sell my house, then I become a renter. That's just how it's going to work. There's also been talk, why is the housing so expensive and why are people building such expensive homes? That there's money flowing into America, in particular, well, I should say North America, because Canada is included. In particular, the west side of North America, it's called the West Coast, Vancouver all the way down to LA, hot money from Asia, China, Singapore, Malaysia, a lot of it from China because they have a lot of dollars. They do a lot of trade with the U.S. and they get a lot of dollars, and you can't do much with dollars necessarily in China, so they use them to buy U.S. real estate. It makes a lot of sense. Take your dollars right back to the United States to buy real estate. So, but they have to do that. They just keep making money. They keep manufacturing iPhones. They keep, racking up the billions. And then that money keeps flowing right back to the U.S. And when it lands on our shore, it's looking for something to buy. It doesn't want to go into U.S. Bank. It doesn't want to go into U.S. CD. It wants to go into real estate. So there's a lot of pressures from all these different sources, not to mention the real topic of this video, climate change. So here in California last year, well, and on up into Oregon and Washington, huge fire season, just enormous. And 2 years before that, 2018, another big fire season. Whole communities burned down to the ground. Many people die, many people fleeing, becoming essentially climate refugees. Now, in poor communities, your community burns down, you're done, probably. Eventually that real estate will go back on the market, people will forget, and they'll say, why doesn't anybody live here? Look at all these empty lots, and I'll just buy this one. And then they buy that lot and they build there. And maybe they're from out of town, maybe they're from out of state, maybe they're from China, okay? So they don't really know the history of the area. All they see is there's this empty lot, and I think I'll build here. But that takes a while, right? It takes a while. So these people are refugees and they're renting, maybe they have some money, maybe they'll build somewhere else. But it puts pressure on the housing market. When you have refugees, those houses are gone, those communities are gone, and the people now become renters or maybe home builders, and it puts pressure on the housing market. That was like from 2018 forward, and in 2020, that really became a big deal. Last year, the fire season was epic, to say the least. Again, entire community set ablaze. And a lot of people made refugees. Maybe they won't even return to that place. So now they're renting. We got a bunch of people over here not far from my house in the shadow of the airport where the city is required to keep some open land. Can't have planes flying in low over residential. They took all the houses out, left the roads, and now it's just grass as an approach for the runway. Well, now we have homeless people living there, unhoused, houseless people. That's always been the case. There's always been people living down on the river. It's not bad, right? Nice place to hang out. If you don't have a lot of income, you can hang out on the river. You have a tarp, you have a sleeping bag. In the UK, they call it rough living. And I think that's, some people choose to be that way. Some people have a string of bad luck and they end up that way. However, today, you go down there and you'll see fifth wheel trailers hooked up to Ford trucks, brand new Ford trucks. And, they're still surrounded by garbage, and there's a dog on a rope and this whole thing. It's definitely a homeless encampment, but, that's not some bum down on his luck living under a tarp, okay? Where do these people come from? Why are they there? Why are they there, and where do they come from? Well, they're refugees. They're refugees. Their house burned down. Maybe they got a little insurance settlement for that. Not enough to rebuild. They don't want to rebuild there because it's just burned down. They're going to wait and see what happens. And so they took some of their insurance money, and they bought themselves a fifth wheel trailer and a new truck, and they're just going to live on the road for a while. They are in essence homeless, maybe by choice, but not really. Wasn't their choice to have their house burned down? Wasn't their choice to have their job imploded by the pandemic? They're toughing it out and trying to do the best they can with what resources they have. And as far as I'm concerned, they're climate refugees. The pandemic is only tangentially related to climate, but I'm going to allow for it. They're refugees. How's that sound? So with this backdrop, that there's been so many fires and there's been so much disruption and there are so many people running around for whatever reason, scrambling around looking for housing. Now we see this huge spike in the price of housing, pretty much all over the country at this point, but certainly in the South Bay, absolutely hands down right here. But also this enormous explosion 3 or 4 times in the price of materials. The amount of housing that's going on around here somewhere is absolutely insane. And my little project just kind of stumbled into that. My little project, well, it's not little to me. It's small enough that I can do it, and I can do all the trades, so that's fine. But my small little project, which is still a pretty big project, just kind of wandered into that minefield. And I'm not going to say I'm blown up yet, but I'm watching the futures price of lumber. I'm paying real close attention to housing. I think those two are tied together in multiple ways. That so long as there's a drought of housing inventory, as I like to call it, then there's going to be a pressure to build houses, and that takes materials out of the warehouses. And so long as there's any kind of a pandemic or anything else, then it's going to make it hard to do the logging and the whatever else. And not that I think that slowed them down by too much. We'll see when they get back on track with all that. But and there could be some speculation. There could be a lot of hot money, the same kind of hot money, the exact same people who are building to rent and investing in houses, cash only offers. And then they turn around and they say, oh, look, our activities just created this huge boom in housing. I wonder if there's any knock-on effects from a huge housing boom. Let's see, what problem did we just cause that we could actually invest in and make money in the solution? And someone may be looking around and saying, oh, lumber futures. Oh, look what this is doing. They're going right through the roof. Okay, I'll slap some money down on lumber futures. So they're working both ends of the problem, right? Why not? But I want to circle back to climate change. Now, this is actually a really huge topic, and I'm going to try and simplify this a little bit, but, just connect the dots for me here, okay? So I don't have to. Here it comes. Climate change is impacting the health of our forests, the boreal forests in Alaska, and also the forests down here in the lower 48 states. Pine bark beetle, which used to be murdered in the cold winter months, has found conditions where it can overwinter and emerge quickly in the spring and jump on the trees. It is destroying huge swaths of forest. You can see it from space. I just saw something from an announcement from Google Maps that they have a new map overlay where you can see all the dead forest, and they're not kidding, okay? You wouldn't think that would be a problem for people who are going to cut the trees down anyway. But I have noticed I get a lot of lumber that has beetle damage. So that lumber If the beetle damage is extensive, that lumber is not rated for residential construction. Now they're selling it to me anyway. It turns out it's okay. There are lots of things you can do with, there's lots of wood that gets cut up, okay, for little things. Or you can use it for your cabinetry or something like that. So I don't feel badly that I'm getting wood damage with beetles, but it's not rated for residential construction. You know, you could look at a board and you see one little hole or a couple little holes going along the edges. For all you know, it's completely hollowed out. And would you accept an entire load of bark beetle damaged wood? You shouldn't. A couple of boards here and there, you'll put up with it, but you won't accept the whole load. So they don't cut that wood. When they're out there, they have an arborist, a tree manager out there with them, and they're tagging the ones they can cut, and they're red tagging the ones not to cut, because that wood won't sell. It'll be cut at cost. It'll be shipped out as logs. It'll go to the mill. They'll run it through the thing, and then the grader at the end, when the logs come out, they'll just pitch them. I don't know why you cut this tree down. I don't know why you milled this up. This is garbage. Now they can still use it. They can chip it up and use it to make OSB, or, well, they can't make plywood, but they can make OSB or particle board or MDF or a bunch of other things that are made with byproducts, right? So they can take, but they've already done the milling. It's gone through the mill, and they've touched it. They've touched it and they've worked it, and now it gets pitched out. That they're not going to do that. So my guess is they just leave those trees standing, or if they take them, they do not go into the lumber supply chain. They go into some other supply chain, like particle board, or, dare I say it, biofuel. They go into, those trees go into generating electricity, which is a big deal. There's a lot of that goes on. In any case, when there's a lot of pine beetle damage in the forest, you see this whole forest, and maybe you put out a bid on that tract of forest, and you're going to clear cut that forest, and you go out there and you see that half the trees are dead or in the process of dying, and they're not going to, you can't really use those. So but you bid on the lot, and so you're going to do the best as you can with the lumber you've got. But it means the supply of lumber is throttled at the source, meaning the forest itself. That's climate change. That is straight up climate change. Absolutely. Indirectly, aspects of climate change. If you do follow climate change, and if you are an Earth systems analyst, or you're a biologist, or you're a serious meteorologist, or you're an atmospheric physicist, and you really follow this stuff, I don't mean the Weather Channel, which is where you go to get your disinformation. But if you follow this stuff in the peer-reviewed journals and the discussions therefrom, then you know a couple of things. One, you know that hurricanes are becoming more intense. And the United States gets a lot of hurricanes. Tornadoes, the data is not quite in, but it now seems plausible that Hurricane Alley, which used to be one strip kind of from Texas up into the upper Midwest, is moving east. Hurricane Alley is moving east. Now you'll still have hurricanes in Oklahoma and Kansas and these places, but now you're getting hurricanes in Kentucky, Tennessee. Doesn't mean they didn't have them. I mean, tornadoes. Doesn't mean they didn't have tornadoes before, but when it moves east, it means you're getting into territory where people just don't know haven't been building houses for tornadoes, don't know what to do with tornadoes, don't have insurance policies for tornadoes. The houses are not tornado proof, and all these kinds of things. And so as climate change moves our severe weather around, or brings more of it, then more people are going to get caught up in the destructive potential of these events. More people, or people who are simply just not prepared. Their local code didn't require them to put in hurricane ties. Their local code, doesn't require them to do something special with their roof or with their second floor, with tie downs and things like that. So they didn't. So the first EF1 hurricane or tornado, I'm sorry, I keep saying the wrong word. The first EF1 tornado that comes through, it doesn't just knock them around and turn over their lawn furniture, rips the roof off. They're not ready. And when will they ever, change their codes? Maybe every 10 years. So there'll be 10 years when people just keep putting the roof back on and keeps ripping it off and keep putting the roof back on and keeps ripping it off. And, this is going to impact materials. It just will. And if the hurricanes are coming ashore and they're a little bit bigger and they're a little bit nastier and they're a little more frequent and the hurricane season is a little bit longer, then once again, the number of people that get swept up into this thing grows. It just grows. We have hurricanes coming ashore on the Gulf Coast, once a week last year. 2 came ashore within 1 week in Honduras. Now, that's not the United States, but it's just an indication that there's something going on. There's something going on here. Puerto Rico still hasn't rebuilt. So, here in the U.S., we have insurance policies. We have Lowe's and Home Depot. People rush out and buy plywood to put on their windows, and then when the windows get blown in anyway, they rush out and buy windows, and and they put the roof back on the house within a week, and there's lots of contractors and all this kind of stuff. So we can fix it. But when we're doing that, there's a price. And one of the things that happens is the inventory of materials goes down, the price goes up, and then the speculators show up, and then people start playing around with the price of things to keep it up because, hey, it's up. Maybe people can get used to this. And, it doesn't necessarily go away, right? Now that we're paying it, the speculators have arrived. And once Goldman Sachs and Wall Street gets involved with the price of lumber, for crying out loud, then you know what's going to happen to that. Look at the price of stocks. If you're in stocks, you're fine with the price of stocks. If you're not in stocks, you're looking at the price of stocks and saying, that looks insane to me. That looks like a bubble. That looks like, that could go sideways real bad. So maybe that's going to happen with lumber. Maybe it goes sideways real bad. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it never does. The price of housing, that can't keep on. Maybe it can. Because these changes might not be cyclical. They might not be speculative. I mean, there's always some amount. Well, as soon as the price of something goes through the roof, Bitcoin or whatever, the speculators show up and they're always there. But that doesn't mean that's how it started. And that doesn't mean that's how it's going to be sustained. Right? People will tell you that the reason the stocks have gone up like crazy is because of all the free money from the Federal Reserve Bank. And because of all the hot money and all the hedge funds and the retirement funds and all this kind of stuff. People are working and people have jobs and they get salaries and they also invest in a 401k, and that's money. And where's that money going to go? It needs to find a return on investment. It needs to grow. And so it starts speculating. It starts looking for things to buy, things to invest in, places to go, homes. It needs a home. Money needs a home. So maybe this doesn't go down. Maybe the lumber and the housing and the build to rent and all that, there's a bunch of dots there. You can start connecting those dots if you want to. If you're into that kind of thing, which I am, you start connecting dots and you say, this doesn't look like an aberration to me. And I think one of the threads through all of this, through the fires and the tornadoes and the hurricanes and the build to rent and the speculation and the refugees and the people looking for a home and the communities being destroyed and whole communities being rebuilt and houses being rebuilt, and all the time, every 3 years, your house burns down. All this stuff, the thread running through all of this really is climate change. Now, I have said in other videos here that we're in for it. We are in for trouble. And I'm here to tell you that looking at the price of lumber, looking at the price of housing, just monitoring the refugees out here on the approach to the airport in their fifth wheel trailers and their new Ford trucks, I'm telling you, we're in for it. It's here. And if it's here, then the price of lumber is just an early signal, just the start of a signal that this is only going to get worse. So I'm going to build my house. I've mentioned it a little bit. The actual project here, building this house, is I'm building what's called an earth arc. I don't think I coined the term, but I'm calling it that. My earth arc is going to have many rooms. I will rent the rooms. I will make money. But there's a lot more going on with my earth arc because I'm aware of what's happening in the world. So like Noah was asked to build an ark to float the people and the animals 2x2 and all this kind of stuff. My Earth Ark is going to be a little bit of a refuge. Okay, I can rent rooms, whatnot. We are going off-grid solar right here, midtown, downtown, off-grid solar. We are working on our gardens, so we have no backyard and we have no front yard. We have a backyard and we have a front yard, but they're not yard, okay? Beds, flower beds, food. Flowers, occasionally, because we like our flowers, we want to feed our butterflies and our hummingbirds, of which we have dozens, but also food. My wife is very busy working on planting. Together, we've been doing a lot of food preservation, canning. We make our own bread. She makes kombucha to drink and sauerkraut and kimchi. Okay. So we're building capacity here. When I build my house, it's going to have a flat section of roof on the top. That's in part to be below the limit. Okay. You build a house and you get too high, 30 feet. So lots of things you could do about that. You could cut out a floor. You could make the roof not as steep, whatever. Well, I cut it off. Why did I cut it off? Well, I have solar panels. I need someplace to put them. I will probably have a vertical axis wind turbine at some point, maybe several, maybe 3. But also I can garden up there. If I'm careful about weight, I don't want the house to crash in, I can garden up there. Do drip irrigation so I don't have a lot of water on my roof all the time, and so on. And yes, I'm aware of the water problems, and I'm working on how to solve those problems. I'm an engineer. I'm a material scientist. I can figure this out. Okay. I'm also going to put decks, 6 foot deep, not too deep, 6 foot decks, pretty much all around it, so people can go outside. They can have a cigarette. They can enjoy the view. They can enjoy the sun without having to go anywhere, go any place. Okay. The pandemic taught us about the importance of being able to stay home, be comfortable, and be engaged with your environment. But also, it's another place I could do container gardening, so I can have small pots or little troughs, redwood troughs with a little bit of soil in them, provided I keep the weight to a minimum. I can do some very simple gardening up there. Maybe it's just flowers, but maybe it's things I can eat. But that means I have to have water up there, a utility sink, a bunch of other things. Planning process, okay? And we already have the off-grid solar. We already have full electric appliances. And if that sounds ruinous to you, then you need to study your appliances. We have a hybrid electric heat pump for water. I actually got some money back from the utility company for my 80-gallon hybrid electric heat pump driven water heater. Heating water is a big part of your energy consumption on your property. I got the biggest one they make, so I can heat water all day and have it all night. The biggest one they make, and it's hybrid electric. It's a heat pump. And I tell you, I can't even measure the electricity it uses. It's insane. It's just nuts. When I build the rooms and the other parts of the house, I'm going to do air conditioning, heating and air conditioning using heat pumps. They're called mini split heat pumps. The compressor's outside and the airflow manager is inside. And you just kind of buy them as you need them. Each compressor can run up to 4 air managers. And so you have like 1 per bedroom and 1 per living room and 1 per kitchen or something like that, right? They're not real big, but you can have a lot of them. It's up to you. And I can install them. It's fine. And the amount of electricity they use is almost nothing. So you can have an all electric house. Oh, and stovetops, normally they're resistive heat. You see a little burning coil in the center of the thing. We're using induction. Induction is sort of the microwave equivalent of a cooktop. In your microwave oven, it's real efficient because it doesn't heat the container. It just heats the food. And you can't cook everything in a microwave oven, but things that can be cooked, it's very efficient. You're just heating the food. You want hot food? Put it in the right kind of container, put it in the microwave, you come up with hot food. An induction cooktop is very similar. It doesn't heat the cooktop. The cooktop doesn't get hot except by transference contact. What it heats is the pot. So you can have a cast iron pot or a special induction enabled cookware, and when you put it on, it heats the pot. And the stovetop only gets hot from conduction. It's touching, so it gets hot from conduction. You're not heating the whole stovetop. You're not heating anything. You're not heating it. You're heating the pot itself, which then heats the food. And you can cook in these things just like you would anything else. You can saute, fry, whatever you want to do. It's exactly the same, but it uses a fraction of the electricity. So when you're on solar, even if you're off-grid solar, you end up going full electric. Full electric. You've got your own electricity. You generate everything from the sun. You have batteries on site. You're storing electricity for nighttime use and wintertime use. And you're self-contained. So we are currently running that system kind of in an experimental mode. The installation isn't really official. I have to build the house and put it all in the house, but I have enough of it deployed that we can experiment with it. So it's great. And definitely the way to go. Absolutely the way to go with the hybrid electric water heater and the induction cooktop. And later on, when I install the heating and air conditioning, being heat pumps, will be gold, solid gold. I mean, we will have one. And as climate change makes things worse and worse, and people start clamoring for solutions, the sad reality is going to be the solutions are going to involve we have to stop burning fossil fuels. If you're really worried about this, if you really are worried about the fires and the floods and the tornadoes and the hurricanes, not that we can stop any of those things, by the way. And if they're bad now, they're going to stay this bad for thousands of years, but we can stop them from getting worse. And if you're interested in stopping them from getting worse, which maybe at some point we will be, then the way that you stop them from getting worse is you stop burning fossil fuels. So you can argue that. You say, well, it must be some other way. No. You can argue that. If you want, you can argue that. You can deny that. You can get your feathers all up and fight about it, but physics wins. All right? Atmospheric physics wins. Earth dynamic system physics wins. You can't argue with physics. You can't argue with math. You can argue with, climate models if you want to, but you can't argue with physics and you can't argue with math. So when natural gas is either really expensive or not available, we're already off-grid solar, all electric. So I'm building an Earth arc. We're just going to float away without going anywhere. But we're going away. We are going away. And the price of lumber and the price of housing and the price of materials and all the disruption with the fires and things that we're seeing, it does not discourage me from keeping to do exactly what I'm doing and to accelerate it and to take notes and to live stream it and to do it again. I could go to any of the houses around here, in any of these neighborhoods, and knock down the little 2-1 house on the property and put in the basement, put in the first and second floors, and put in the attic and flatten off the roof and put the solar panels on and the vertical axis wind turbines and put in the garden and do everything. Just do this again. Or people can watch my live stream later when it's up and they can say, wow, look at what this guy's doing. Holy cow, this is why he's doing it. Yeah, he's onto something. And they could do it themselves. And we're just going to leave. We're just going to take ourselves to a better place. Not physically, but, in terms of fighting the laws of physics and losing a place, not there. So I started on this project, conceptually several years ago. And when I got laid off from my technology job, which was fine with me, okay, then I started working on this project in various ways more seriously. And now I'm working on the plans, I'm working on the code compliance and all the hoo-ha for that, which is good. I'm not regretting it, not angry at anybody for having requirements. The requirements are sound. So I'm working on all that, learning it, figuring out how to do it, because I want to know how it's done. And the price of lumber is just going to be the price of doing business. And it encourages me, as I already had decided to do, to rent the rooms. So I have some income from this project. And if I, need to do other projects for other people, I will do those other projects for those people. We are going to leave. We're going to leave all this behind. One big project that I have been cogitating over, but I'm not going to do because it's probably a time sink, is water capture. There's talk right now about droughts in California and water shortages, some of which is actually probably not real. We tend to create some of our own problems, but not being real efficient with water, and having places like Southern California that just doesn't really have any local water supply, and they're sucking up all the water from the entire western states. Really, it all goes to Los Angeles. Fine, that's just how it is. So be it. But I can do water capture, and the work I'm doing with building a basement here for occupancy and utilities and whatnot has encouraged me to think about building an underground cistern for collecting water. So all my downspouts will go into a small little basin, a little gravel basin that has a little tiny pump in it. They cost about $150 a piece. I might have to have 4 or 5 of them around the property to collect the downspout water, and then it'll pump it underground like you would irrigation, right? PVC underground into a tank. And the tank will be, 20,000 gallons, something like that. And it'll just collect rainwater. So if someone comes along during a drought and they say, yeah, we're going to read your meter every week. You can't use more than, given the number of people you have in your household, X number of gallons a day. I say, fine. We can definitely do that. Absolutely do that. I'm going to be putting water meters on all the rooms. I'll be putting electric meters on all the rooms in my house. Why? Because it'll be useful information. I'm off-grid solar. It's good to know what's happening. If someone made a mistake and they did something they shouldn't have been doing, I'll notice it. I'll catch it right away. I'll catch it the same day. If they plugged in some little resistant heater and heated their room with a resistive heater and it knocked the batteries out, well, then I'll know who did that. I'll also know who's consuming a lot of water, and I can give them tips on how to consume less water. The water in the cistern will be used to run the garden. Not drinking it. I just pump it out. I have an above ground pressure tank, a submerged pump. It pressurizes the tank. You run all your irrigation off the tank. None of it comes off of the house, and everything works. Everything works exactly like it does. The only difference is that whereas city water is pressurized for me by their pumps, my water is pressurized by me for my own use. And then you're like, oh, electricity, off-grid solar. Don't care. I just don't care. I have more electricity than I can use. I just have so much electricity right now, it's insane. Completely off-grid. It's a little tougher in the winter. But this time of year, are you kidding me? I don't know what to do with it. And you say, oh, you sell it back to the utility. No, I'm not going to sell my electricity back to the utility. It's my electricity. I'll use it or I won't use it. Then go pound sand. So I have my underground cistern, my electric pumps, my pressure tank, and that's one less thing, at least for the gardening, that I have to deal with. Earth Arc, floating away. I'm also buying a $2,500 whole house water filter. I could even buy 2 of them. And in a pinch, if I had to, I could use the cistern water to pressurize the house. I mean, like by if I had to, I mean the entire water system fails for like a 9-county area and there's no water and they have to depressurize the pipes and you get water once every 3 days and they're telling you to bottle your water and filter your water and sterilize your water and boil your water. Well then, if everyone's already boiling their water, then I can take water out of my cistern. And I tell my household, if you get any water out of here, it's going through the whole house filter, but it would be to your advantage to go ahead and boil it anyway and run it through your Brita filter on your countertop to drink. Otherwise, it's fine for you for showers. I can do that. If I've got 20,000 gallons of water underground, I can do that. So yeah, that's a project caused by climate change. We'll see. Maybe California ends up going exactly the opposite direction and we become like a tropical paradise with 50 inches of rain a year, or probably more like 100 inches of rain a year, in which case my system will look kind of silly. But, if I can build it for cheap and if I can use it to water my garden, then, at the very least, I save money on importing water from the grid, the water distribution grid. So, it can serve me. So this is what an earth arc is. This is what an earth arc is. I don't know what the future holds, but I am going to build it. And it's going to be a garden. It's going to be solar collector, which is another kind of a garden, on-site water, and being as resilient as possible for as many people as possible. My wife and I, our family, our extended family, and anybody else who, doesn't mind living here with rules. So I don't really care about the price of lumber. I mean, there's a part of me that doesn't care. There's a part of me that doesn't care about the price of housing. I got a house. All right. I'm willing to share it. So, bonus points for me. But I don't really care about these things. I have to watch them. I have to be careful. But I have to go forward. And you do too. And as the world slowly grinds itself into pieces, we need to be aware of what's happening. And it's the fires, and it's the tornadoes, and it's the hurricanes, and it's the bark beetles, and it's the drought, and it's the this, and it's the that. And it's all the thread running through all of it, including the price of lumber, as far as I'm concerned, is climate change. It's here. It's given us a black eye already. It's going to give us a black eye next year and the year after that. And because of the residency time of CO2 in the atmosphere, it's going to give us a black eye for 10,000 years. Not kidding. No joke. 10,000 years. I don't know what our cities are going to look like in 10,000 years. I don't even know what the shoreline is going to look like. I can't even tell you what the shoreline is going to look like in 100 years. I'm at 82 feet elevation. I looked it up. So I've got that. I've got that going for me. By the time 82 feet is gone, I expect all of this here, all of this is just forgotten ruins, including the foundation of my house. Forgotten ruins. People used to live there. It was a long time ago. Sobering. It's sobering. I'm glad that I have a project. I'm glad I can fund it. I'm glad I can help people with my project. And I'm glad that I'm coping with all of this because it's bad. I'm not going to lie. It's bad. It's going to be 10,000 years bad. And you can say, what does this guy know? 10,000 years. What? Guy's nuts. No, I'm not. I pay attention. I read the papers. I read the articles. I study the analysis. I study it. I get it into my brain. I'm a scientist. That's what I do. I'm an engineer. That's how I roll. And I'm building an earth arc. Out of 2x4s, $7 a piece. It's coming. It's a coming.